What's going on, guys? Teddy Baldassarre from teddybaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where we cover watches available for purchase on our website as an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Timex Q root beer. So at any point throughout this video, we'll have the relevant links in the description if you are interested in learning more or purchasing this watch. As always, we'll do a deep dive review of the piece and then things to consider on both the positive and negative end mentioned at the end of the video. But guys, let's take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs: case size 38 millimeters, thickness 11 millimeters, lug width of 18 millimeters, lug to lug of 45.3 millimeters, water resistance of 50 meters, movement is a Quartz Seiko PC33, crystal is acrylic, bezel aluminum, and price $189. And we do have a promo code on this for the holiday season, so check that one out as well on the site. Now, the past year or so, there hasn't probably been a quartz watch in this price range that has gotten the same amount of just press and coverage like the Timex Q. I covered the M79 a little bit ago, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it, to be honest with you. I thought where the price fell, the bracelet, the movement, I think it was starting to get pretty steep for what to expect from a watch of that caliber. And in that video, I pretty much offered if you want that overall look, you might as well just go for the Timex Q. And today we have a newer watch of the Timex Q lineup with this root beer variant. Now, this Timex Q root beer is an evolution of the Q Timex that debuted in 2019 based on the designs in the 1970s. And I think where the price falls, this has kind of been just the perfect formula for many people just adding these to their collection as a fun kind of wear around piece. First, looking at this watch and wearability. Now, the M79 that I had, it had a larger case size that we looked at. And this Timex Q, I think, wears a bit better for what it's trying to go for. 38 millimeters with its overall diameter, short lug to lug distance, and a lightweight overall design, which makes this watch barely noticeable on the wrist. You almost forget that you have it on. The watch would be extremely thin as well if it was not for this highly domed acrylic crystal designed to match the profile of the 1979 Timexes it's modeled after. In addition, the amount of real estate taken up by the signature brown and black root beer style bezel tends to make the dial appear even smaller, as this one is going to wear probably closer to a 37 to 36 millimeter watch when you factor it all in. The hooded lugs do angle down quite significantly, making this already short case even more comfortable on the wrist. But for me, the biggest downside for this watch, as well as the M79 that I reviewed previously, it is the bracelet. This bracelet does have some flaws. It's nice looking when you have it strapped on. It does have the tendency to pull some hair, and then when looking at how it meets the case with those lug hoods, your overall flexibility compared to maybe some other watches with this type of lug width, it's not going to be necessarily the same because you do have to factor in just that gap that is available there. So you're going to want to go for some thin straps, thin leather straps that aren't going to have that much padding. So bracelet is the one downside of this, but it's also such a key attribute in terms of its overall aesthetic. So it's kind of a double-edged sword here. I think considering it's $100 cheaper than the M79, I think you could forgive this one a bit more than for the more expensive of the two here. The Timex Q comes in a pretty straightforward level of finishing with nothing fancy here, with simple brushed on the top, polished on the sides, and of course a kind of rose gold tone stainless steel treatment that is also utilized on the bracelet. While the case and the bracelet color won't be in everyone's favor, it does scream 1980s style in a way that a lot of retro millennials, Gen Z types will probably like and probably wear with their acid wash jeans and oversized t-shirts from Goodwill. The bezel is bidirectional and is friction fit, which is to say it'll rotate smoothly without any clicks. As I mentioned, the angled hood lugs have an interesting look at the 18 millimeter lug width, a size that allows for a variety of different straps, but considering the case color as well as that distance in terms of the vertical distance of fitting different straps in, it's just going to be maybe a little bit more limiting. Along the 3 o'clock side of the case, we have a traditional crown that is signed, and like many watches of this caliber, it is going to operate in typical fashion where you can change the date and the day at the first position and then can adjust the time at the farthest out point. Going to the back of the case, there's an interesting inclusion of a battery hatch, pretty commonplace on inexpensive quartz watches from the 1980s, but rarer now. Essentially, you can just take a coin, remove the hatch, and replace the battery yourself, though I might have some concerns about the already low 50 meters of water resistance after opening the case, but you should be good to go here. Now, one of the strongest vintage style elements of this watch, and that's saying something considering the rest of the look of this piece, is the highly domed acrylic crystal, which, though certainly is less durable compared to sapphire, it just fits well with this piece, while also being easy to polish if it does get scratched up. Resting below the plastic crystal is a matte black dial with the traditional Timex Q vintage Submariner shape printed hour markers. The handset also falls a bit victim to the sub influence with a lollipop style hour hand and stick minute hand, as well as a simple red seconds hand. The only complication to speak of here is the day date at the 3 o'clock. You have pretty minimal overall style in terms of the lack of writing on the actual dial surface. In addition, you're also getting some lume here, which has a bit of a vintage tint. It actually, I think, looks pretty good in this case, especially with this root beer variant. The lume is certainly not going to rival that of Seiko counterparts, but it does do the job in terms of dark scenarios. Now, as much as I love mechanical movements, there are certainly times when a quartz movement just makes more sense, and this is one of those times, especially coming in a watch called the Timex Q, honoring 1970s quartz watches from the brand. This particular quartz caliber made by Seiko, the PC33, is accurate to around 30 seconds a month. The battery should last 3 years, but hey, when the time comes, you do have that battery hatch to actually change it yourself. All right, so now just to unpack here, looking at this version and just kind of speaking to all the Timex Qs out there, are all these watches the best value? Absolutely not. If you want the best mechanical movement or the best watch that you possibly can for the money, I think there's other places that you can look, but I don't think that's necessarily what Timex is going for with these pieces. Compared to the M79, I think there is better value here because some of the drawbacks with the bracelet and in terms of what you're going for with the looks, it's all still there, except you're getting in a more affordable package. The reason why you look at this piece is I think it being more of just a fun retro style design. I don't imagine this being your only go-to watch. It's more of a complementary piece to your entire collection. And if you have that overall context, I think that's where this watch just makes a bit more sense. It's fun, it's retro, and I can see why there's so much intrigue with this piece across the entire industry, even from some really hardcore collectors. And I think this root beer model is certainly a nice addition to this Timex Q range. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also, hit the link in the description if you are interested in learning more about this piece and also purchasing it. We're an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, full factory warranty, and one of the most secure places you can buy a watch online. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.